Have you ever stared in the mirror and barely recognized yourself? The spark in your eyes dimmed, the corners of your mouth heavy with exhaustion, and inside a hollow ache that no laughter, no distraction, no conversation can touch. Life has a way of stealing our joy in subtle, relentless ways. Losing a job you poured your heart into, failing an exam that once defined your worth, saying goodbye to someone you never thought you could live without. The bills stack up, the phone doesn't ring, and every day feels like walking through fog. If you've ever felt like happiness left without leaving a forwarding address, you are not alone. But what if the very thing you've been searching for, the smile, the joy, the hope, was quietly waiting to be restored? There is a force greater than our circumstances, a quiet power that steps into our pain and gently rebuilds the pieces of our broken hearts. When life has drained your laughter and left despair sitting heavy on your chest, restoration isn't just possible, it's promised. The smiles you thought you lost forever, the hope you convinced yourself was gone, the spark that felt permanently extinguished can return. It begins with surrender, with letting something higher carry the weight you cannot lift alone. Through grace, strength, and unwavering love, there is a path from emptiness to fulfillment, from silence to laughter. Your journey back to joy is not about forcing happiness, it's about allowing restoration to unfold, moment by moment, in ways you may not yet expect. Despair often feels like a permanent residence. Losing a good job, for example, doesn't just take a paycheck, it shakes confidence and purpose. You wake up in the same home, but everything familiar suddenly feels foreign. Questions plague your mind. Am I not enough? Why me? Every rejection and every closed door becomes proof that life has abandoned you. Yet, in these moments, the seeds of restoration are quietly sown. God doesn't promise to erase the pain instantly, but He does promise presence and strength when the world feels empty. It's in these moments of vulnerability where your ego fails and hope falters that the work of restoration begins quietly, persistently, like sunlight creeping through a cloudy morning. Failure has a way of making us question everything we thought we knew about ourselves. Failing an exam, missing a goal, or underperforming in a project can create a crushing weight of self-doubt. The voice in your head grows louder, whispering that you'll never be enough, that you're not worthy of success or joy. It feels like a permanent label, a stain you cannot scrub away. But restoration often begins where despair feels deepest. Through faith, patience, and courage, the very failure that shattered confidence can become the fertile ground for growth. One step, one small act of trust will slowly reintroduce hope, showing that your life isn't defined by what went wrong, but by what is still possible. Grief has its own language. And losing a loved one can silence your laughter for months, even years. The house is emptier, the room quieter, and every memory becomes a bittersweet reminder of what once was. Friends may say time heals, but grief is not linear. It ebbs and flows like a tide, carrying with it waves of despair. Yet even here, restoration can take root. God's comfort can enter the quiet spaces of sorrow, offering moments of peace that seem impossible. Joy doesn't erase the loss. It coexists with it, like sunlight filtering through clouds. It begins as a tiny flicker, a laugh remembered, a memory cherished, and gradually grows until smiles return naturally, not as denial of pain, but as proof that life can still be beautiful. Financial hardship has a way of testing both patience and faith. When the bills pile up, savings vanish, and you feel trapped in a cycle of scarcity, despair can creep in, whispering lies about inadequacy and failure. Even the simplest joys, sharing a meal, taking a walk, or laughing at a friend's joke, feel out of reach. Yet this is precisely the arena where restoration works in profound ways. Faith invites us to trust that provision can come in forms we cannot yet imagine, that blessings often appear when we stop focusing on lack and start noticing possibilities. Smiles return not because circumstances suddenly change, but because perspective shifts, gratitude grows, and hope begins to blossom quietly in the heart. At times, the pain of life feels entirely personal, as though everyone else's joy comes effortlessly while we remain trapped in struggle. Comparisons amplify despair. Friends achieving milestones, colleagues receiving recognition, families celebrating milestones. It's easy to wonder if joy is reserved for someone else, leaving you perpetually behind. But joy isn't measured by outward success. It's a restoration that begins internally. God's strength works quietly, reminding you that your story is unique, that your timing is sacred, and that each small victory matters. When we release the need to keep up with others, we allow space for authentic restoration to flourish. A joy that isn't dependent on circumstances, but emerges from faith and resilience within. Restoration often begins in moments we least expect, like a gentle whisper during prayer, or a sudden memory that brings warmth to a cold heart. Perhaps it's the laughter of a stranger, a friend's unexpected kindness, or a moment of clarity that shows life differently. These seemingly small experiences plant seeds of hope that gradually grow into smiles. Real stories remind us of this. Consider someone like Nick Vujicic, born with... Sometimes we must confront the lies we tell ourselves, that our pain is permanent, our failures defining, and our joy unattainable. These internal barriers can feel unmovable, a fortress of despair built over years. Yet the journey to restored smiles begins by dismantling them one truth at a time. God's presence invites us to see beyond our self-imposed limitations, to recognize that setbacks, losses, and heartbreaks do not define us, they refine us. By leaning into faith, reflecting on small blessings, and taking tangible steps forward, even the heaviest hearts can learn to laugh again. Restoration is rarely immediate, but it is inevitable when faith meets action. Sometimes it's not about changing circumstances, it's about changing perspective. When we lose control of life's events, God restores what is truly essential: peace, contentment, and resilience. Consider the story of J.K. Rowling, who faced rejection, financial struggles, and despair before publishing the Harry Potter series. Her faith in her purpose and perseverance through hardship allowed joy and fulfillment to return despite years of pain. Similarly, your smile may return not because the world changes instantly, but because your heart is renewed from within. Restoration is a process of trust, patience, and courage, proving that even after the darkest seasons, laughter and hope can reemerge in ways more profound than before. Restoration also thrives through intentional action. Sometimes we feel paralyzed by grief, failure, or lack, waiting for joy to appear magically. But small steps, reaching out to a friend, practicing gratitude, engaging in creative expression, or stepping into a new opportunity invite life back into weary hearts. These acts, paired with faith, create fertile ground for God to replace despair with laughter, hopelessness with hope, and sorrow with smiles. Even a single moment of courage or trust can become the first brick in rebuilding joy. When restoration begins in action as well as belief, the process accelerates, proving that God's grace doesn't just heal, it empowers, equipping us to reclaim the smiles we thought were gone forever. Joy begins to return in those quiet moments we overlook. These moments are God's gentle reminders that life still holds beauty, even when pain has dominated the narrative. When we start noticing these fragments of light, we create space for restoration. Smiles return slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, but each flicker of joy strengthens the soul. It's in these small awakenings that hope grows roots, teaching us that God doesn't always repair our lives all at once. He restores piece by piece, moment by moment, until the smile you thought you lost forever finds its home again. Consider the restoration after losing a career you cherished. At first, the disappointment feels crushing. A void where identity once thrived, yet faith and perseverance transform this setback into a launch pad for something greater. Opportunities arise beyond expectation, offering a chance to reclaim confidence, purpose, and joy. By leaning on divine guidance, seeking wisdom, and embracing resilience, individuals find fulfillment in paths they never imagined. The restored smiles are deeper. They reflect inner victory over fear, doubt, and despair. The loss now becomes a stepping stone to a renewed sense of self, proving that God's restoration works not just in circumstances, but within the very core of our hearts. Failure in academics or personal goals can feel like a mark of inadequacy, as though the world's judgment is etched in your mind. But restoration through faith transforms these failures into lessons, clarity, and renewed determination. The person who once felt hopeless after a disappointing result begins to see doors opening, knowledge gained, and skills sharpened. God replaces the sting of failure with purpose, showing that missteps are not the end. They are guides pointing toward growth. Joy returns as confidence grows, and a smile emerges as the soul recognizes its own resilience. Each restored smile is a testament that setbacks are temporary and that a higher power can turn every stumble into an opportunity to rise stronger than before. Grieving the loss of a loved one often feels like an eternal winter. But even amidst profound sorrow, restoration is possible. Memories, once painful, gradually become treasures. Laughter begins to return in unexpected moments, and tears are balanced with gratitude for shared moments. God's presence fills the empty spaces, allowing joy to coexist with loss. In time, the soul rediscovers the capacity to smile without guilt, to embrace life fully again. Restoration in grief is subtle, but profound. A gentle reminder that love never truly leaves and that our hearts are resilient enough to hold both sorrow and joy, allowing the smile you thought was gone forever to bloom once more. Financial hardship often tests our faith. When resources are scarce and hope feels distant, restoration manifests in unexpected provision, support, or insight. God replaces worry with clarity, fear with trust, and despair with gratitude. God can also use friends, family, mentors, and strangers to remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. Encouragement, shared laughter, or someone simply listening can catalyze the return of hope and joy. Even in moments of scarcity, people learn to find joy in simplicity, laughter in small victories, and hope in the promise of tomorrow. This restored joy isn't superficial. It's grounded in faith, resilience, and perspective. Each smile regained during hardship is a victory over circumstance, proof that restoration is possible even when the world seems to offer nothing but struggle. The journey back to joy requires a shift in perspective. Pain, loss, and failure can be reframed as teachers rather than punishers. God replaces bitterness with understanding, grief with wisdom, and hopelessness with insight. When we allow ourselves to see the lessons embedded in hardship, restoration unfolds naturally. Each smile regained carries the weight of experience and the depth of gratitude. Life's hardships become bridges to empathy, compassion, and inner strength. The person who once believed they would never laugh again discovers that their restored joy is more profound, enduring, and transformative than any fleeting happiness experienced before the trial. You need to, in small, intentional ways that invite joy back into our lives. Reaching out to others, expressing gratitude, helping someone in need, or pursuing a creative endeavor can all catalyze restoration. God replaces passivity with purpose, showing that smiles are not just gifts, they are cultivated. By stepping forward, even when fear lingers, we create a space for hope to return. These acts of courage demonstrate that restoration is active, participatory, and deeply personal. Each intentional step reconnects us with life's beauty, reinforces trust in divine timing, and rekindles the smiles that seemed lost forever. Restoration also thrives in stories of perseverance. Oprah Winfrey overcame poverty, abuse, and professional setbacks to become one of the world's most influential figures. Her journey wasn't just about success, it was about rediscovering joy, purpose, and a platform to inspire others. Her pains were replaced with resilience, her setbacks with vision, and her struggles with empowerment. Similarly, each restored smile in your life is a testament to endurance, faith, and divine grace. Joy is not only recovered, it becomes a beacon illuminating your life and the lives of those around you. At this stage, the restored smile is no longer fragile. It is rooted in experience, faith, and gratitude. God replaces fear with confidence, doubt with clarity, and loneliness with connection. The laughter that returns is not forced, it is authentic, reflecting a heart that has been healed. You begin to see life as a series of seasons, each with lessons and gifts, each shaping the resilience and joy within you. Even when challenges arise, the soul is equipped to meet them with courage and optimism. Restoration transforms not only the smile on your face, but the very way you perceive yourself and your journey. Your journey from despair to restored joy proves that no smile is ever truly lost when God is present. Life's hardships, loss, failure, grief, and scarcity are not the end of the story. They are the canvas upon which restoration paints new hope, laughter, and faith. Each small victory, each flicker of gratitude, each moment of courage contributes to the rebirth of your spirit. Today, your smile can return not as a fleeting emotion, but as a reflection of inner strength, divine love, and resilience. Step forward, trust the process, and allow restoration to unfold. The joy you thought was gone forever is waiting for you. And when it arrives, it will be brighter, deeper, and more beautiful than ever before.